Welcome to TP Law classes to all my viewers. I would express my regret not uploading any video within the past 9 days. So today we'll discuss in our lecture about the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. So, the very act of 2008, in spite of India having Indian Partnership Act 1932, enacted Limited Liability Partnership Act in 2008. So, in regards to that, we would discuss the very procedure for registration of limited liability partnership and the very procedure of incorporation and the very agreement procedure as provided under the Act, and also in regards to designated partner. So, the very first one is regarding procedure of registration. And before that, simply we want to discuss that very act was enacted in 2008 to mitigate risks associated with high capital requirements and provide flexibility in business structure. So, this very Llp Act of 2008 is provided an association of two or more persons who have agreed to be jointly and severally liable for the obligation incurred by the Limited Liability Partnership Act. The Limited Liability Partnership Act has no legal personality and does not own any property. It is only governed by a contract that sets out its members' rights, duties, and obligations. So now we'll go to the very provisions of the Act as provided under Section 12 and 13 in regards to procedure of registration. So the very Act of 2008, which came into effect in the same year, in April 1, that governs the registration of limited liability partnership in India, and it is the law that governs the registration of limited liability partnership and to protect the partners from being held liable for any debts and obligations incurred by the association. So all the partners, as per the provisions under Section 12 and 13, are treated as mere passive investors and not as active partners in a limited liability partnership. So, as per the provisions of Section 12 and 13, it provides for a procedure for registering a limited liability partnership. So now we'll go to the very provision of incorporation of limited liability partnership as provided under the Act of 2008. So the very section which provides regarding the procedure for incorporation as under Section 11 It provides a legal framework for regulating the business affairs of limited liability partnership. It also defines what constitutes a partnership, how it can be formed, dissolved, and other important terms related to this type of entity, and that is limited liability partnership. So, as per the provisions of Section 11 of the Act of 2008, incorporating a limited liability partnership is a procedure to create the legal entity known as a limited liability partnership. And as per the provisions of Section 11 of the 2008 Act, the articles of incorporation for a limited liability partnership must include the name, address, and registered agent of the LLP, the limited liability partnership, the name, address, and registered agent of each general partner, so the name and address of each member of the limited liability partnership, and also the date when it is formed or it was formed. And besides that, it would also include a brief statement about what type of business or profession is being conducted by the limited liability partnership, as it is provided under Section 11 of the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. So now we'll go to the very agreement procedure as provided under Section 23 of the Act. So the limited liability partnership agreement has to be in writing and must have the following requirements: the parties' names and addresses, the type of limited liability partnership and its date of formation, the date on which the limited liability partnership is formed, and its duration. So also the name of the limited liability partnership's official agent for service of process, and also a list of all general partner members of the limited liability partnership, and it must be compiled within 30 days with a fees of rupees 100 as provided under Section 23 of the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. And now we'll go to another aspect, that is dealing with designated partner. And the very provisions regarding designated partner that we found under Section 7, Section 9, and Section 10 of the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. So the very legislation, as per the provisions of Section 7, Section 9, and Section 10, make it mandatory for all partnerships to have a number, and that is the identification number. And as per the LLP amendment rules, which were enacted in 2015, ensure that the partnership has a unique identification number and that no two associations have the same number. This Law ensures no confusion and that any partner can identify their partnership with is the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Act as per the finance bills introduced by the finance minister under the Finance Act 2017 was passed in 2018 and the very amendments applies to all limited liability partnerships registered on or after April 1, 2018. So, the amendments of 2018 provides the following as regarding termination of partnership by agreement or partners' liability for wrongful acts or transfer of partnership property or partnership's dissolution by agreement or partners' liability for wrongful acts committed before dissolution and so also transfer of partnership property before dissolution. So limited liability of Partnership Act of 2018 8 after the following amendments in 2018 is a form of business entry that allows partners to share the risks and benefits of the business without having to transfer ownership. So the very Amendment Act changed the laws surrounding partnership in India. So this new law would help Indian companies grow and expand their business by lowering their entry barriers and making it easier to raise capital from investors. So, also it has a provision that states that the designated partners will be punished if they contravene any acts, requirements, or regulations. The punishment can be imprisonment for up to 6 months and an amount of arrest 50,000 or fine even both. Many designated partners have been trying to comply with all the conditions to avoid any risks of punishment leading to changes in their behavior. They are now more careful about compliance with limited liability partnership rules and regulations, following all their procedures. So, after the very enactment in 2021, amendments were made regarding framing certain rules and the very provisions of strike off or winding off limited liability partnership. And in regards to that, the very Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Act came into effect in 2022 and it brought 29 amendments to the existing Act of Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008. So those particular amendments and changes made under this 2021 amendment are decriminalization of offences. So the very act decriminalized certain offences and reduced the punishment from fines to monetary penalties. So, the amendment introduced special courts and adjudicating officers for establishment of special courts and appointed adjudicating officers to speed up the disposal of trials. So, it provided introduction of small limited liability partnership and stat of limited liability partnerships to attract investors and allow flexibility in working. So it provided central government's authority to direct regarding change of name, the central government's authority to direct an limited liability partnership to change its name if it is undesirable or identical to a pending trademark. So, another feature of the amendment of 2021 is regarding punishment for fraud. So, the Act increases the punishment for fraud to imprisonment up to 2 years and fine of up to 5 lakh rupees. So, another important feature of the 2021 amendment in regards to Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 is relating to punishment for non-compliance with National Company Law Tribunal. So, for non-compliance with an order of the National Company Law Tribunal, the imprisonment is up to 6 months and fine up to 50,000 rupees. And another most important inclusion under the 2021 amendment is the power given to central government as the authority to compound any offense punishable with a fine. So, these are the important changes brought under the Limited Liability Partnership Amendment Act of 2021. And the next most important change was made in 2023 amendment of including certain rules under the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 in regards to maintaining a register of partners and declaration of disclosing beneficial interest, and it came into effect in 2023 itself. These rules include several changes to the Parent Act, that is the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008, and the consequence rules of 2009, and it was aimed to improve transparency, reporting standards of limited liability partnerships. So the very provision is regarding register of partners. So the limited liability partnerships must maintain a register of partners in Form 4A at their registered office. This register must include information such as the partner's name, address, and date of becoming a partner. It also provided declaration of beneficial interest. The limited liability partnership must declare the names of people who have an interest in the limited liability partnership through a nominee or registered holder beneficial owner relationship. So also the rules provided designated partner and about which already we have discussed. The limited liability partnership must designate a partner to share information with the register or other authorized officers regarding beneficial interest in contribution. And the very rules of 2023 amendment to the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 provides regarding changes into Form 3. So, all limited liable partners must submit additional information in Form 3 with the Register of Companies within 30 days of incorporation. These include details about the limited liability partnership agreement, such as the type of body corporate, if the nominee is a body corporate. And finally, the 2023 Limited Liability Partnership Amendment rules provided regarding penalties. There is a penalty of 5,000 for contravening the rules and an additional penalty of rupees 100 for each day the contravention continues. The maximum penalty is rupees 1 lakh. So these are the modifications and amendments subsequently made to the Parent Act, that is the Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008, and the very changes made in 2015 and 2017 and 18. So the Act was amended in 2021 relating to strike off, winding off limited liability partnership. And finally, the amendment of 2023 in regards to Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 and those rules subsequently enacted in 2009 were amended in 2023, and those rules provided maintaining a register of partners and also regarding declaration why the limited liability partnership is regarding disclosing any beneficial interest. So, in connection to Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008 and the subsequent rules enacted in 2009 and those amendments of 2000 and changes in 2015 and 2017 and 18, and also the amended Act of 2021, and finally those rules enacted and amended in 2023 that we have completed. So, in our next upcoming lecture, we would like to discuss the very difference between Limited Liability Partnership and the Indian Partnership Act 1932 as because the very question arises in our mind, in spite of India having Indian Partnership Act of 1932, why India want to enact a new piece of legislation in 2008 as Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008.